like to call the Instruction Committee to order. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the approval of the May 18th instruction minutes.
So, second.
Is there any discussion or revisions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The list of field trips are in the packet. Any questions or comments on those? Typical end of the year travel. All right, now we come to the heart of the program, the school data presentations. We have elementary schools first. Do we have someone to start? Sure.
We all just come up and sit down?
It's like we're playing.
I think the assistant superintendent did an amazing job making sure it was right number.
I know, look at that.
I had enough fingers.
All right, so I'm going to start out. I know all of you. I'm Heidi Zolman, CIA coach for elementary, and we're all excited to be here tonight. I have a little cheat sheet for you all, because sometimes this data can get confusing. All right, so it kind of goes over some acronyms and some things that you might hear tonight that you're like, what is that again? And it's right in your cheat sheet. They're all the same, yeah. All right, so when we look at our data tonight, it's called cohort data. So we're actually looking at the same set of kids. So if I look at, like, here's an example here, grade 4. If you look at this bar over here, this bar chart, these are current grade 4 students, and then we're actually comparing them to the same students, but last year at the end of the year. So they were in 3rd grade. And then this bar right here is the same group of students, but they were in 2nd grade. Okay? All right, so we're going to start off with Chamberlain Street School.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Howard, principal of Chamberlain. As we reflect upon our data at Chamberlain this past year, we note that we have some areas of celebration and some areas of need. We're very excited to celebrate our youngest learners. Our kindergarten class started this year off with 3% of our students, which is actually 1 of our students on benchmark in our kindergarten classes, and they improved, as you can see, to 82% this year. So we're very excited about their learning this year. Our 1st grade students, who started the year at 38% of our students on grade level, increased to 64%, which is also excellent growth for 1st grade. While we recognize that last year they ended the year in kindergarten at 76%, we know that the expectations change in 1st grade. So we want to celebrate their success from the beginning of this year as well. We also note that the cohort last year, at the end of 1st grade, we only had 49% of students on benchmark, so that's a 15% increase from our cohort last year to this year. As we celebrate the success of these youngest learners, we want to commend the teachers, reading specialists, paraprofessionals, and interventionists for their hard work and dedication. The collaboration between all of these professionals, the structured learning time, professional learning communities, and then looking at our master schedule have really helped with the success of our students. We were also fortunate to have an additional reading interventionist this year, funded through ESSER, so that has been a great benefit to us, as well as we use that support to focus on our youngest learners. We also note the benefit of our 1st grade cohort having had a solid year of CKLA, our new core reading program, last year in kindergarten, and attribute some of their success this year to that, and we look forward to seeing that continue as we continue with our core program in CKLA. As we look at our math and EWA data, we note the success of our 2nd grade students with 68% of students on benchmark. We want to note that they benefited from the flexible what I need intervention blocks, with interventions provided by all staff, including interventionists, classroom teachers, and paraprofessionals, and sharing those students across the 3 second grade classrooms in the Walk to Math model that they've used this year and in years past. We also celebrate the steady improvement of that 5th grade cohort, as you can see, growing from 3rd to 5th grade from 48% to 61% at the end of this year. We did note with math, sorry, Heidi, while the 3rd and 4th grade scores are not where we would like them to be, this is certainly not for lack of effort from staff or from students. And this summer, as we work together as a staff during some leadership team days, we'll dig deeper into the data. We'll look at that master schedule, see how we can revamp and increase student interventions. And we also look to expand our Walk to Math model next year for grades 2 to 5, like we had in 2nd grade. In regards to math, we're also excited about the implementation of iReady, the new core math program next year, and look forward to seeing increased student performance as we implement the new program. As with 3rd and 4th grade math, we see a need for improvement with our reading NEWA scores. Next year, we plan to increase our mentoring and targeted coaching to staff, especially with our newest teachers. As a district, our professional development will be focused on instructional practices and in our new core programs. We also have common staff meeting times between all 8 of our elementary schools, which will allow us to have that common time for grade levels to work together and really dig in and see what's working. We'll also continue the mentoring program and the structured learning walks, providing opportunities for all of our staff to go to other classrooms in the building and in the district to see what is working in other classrooms. Lastly, I'd like to note the impact of the social emotional challenges and student behavior, especially for our students in grades 3 to 5. We continue to see that impact of COVID-19 and remote learning, and we're excited for the addition of an additional guidance counselor next year to be able to increase our whole class social emotional learning instruction and then also targeted instruction for the neediest of students.
Just a question for.
So we can stop and have a question time?
That's what I was gonna ask. Do you want us to stop it with each school or
It's up
go
to
through everything?
Whatever you think. I'm okay, I think that if you want to ask questions now, that's fine. Do you want me to go back and let me know if you want me to go back to any slides or if you have questions?
Questions first? Go ahead, Sandy.
Thank you. I'm new to this whole thing, so I don't understand what's going on here, but if in grade 2, they ended the year at 59, and in grade 3, they're ending at 42, that doesn't sound like an improvement, that sounds like we've lost something. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
reading it correctly.
You are reading it
Okay.
correctly. Last year, they ended 2nd grade stronger than they did this year.
Okay,
So that's where we talk about what we're gonna do differently and what we're gonna change to make sure that we see improvement
Okay.
next year.
great, thank you.
Any other questions for Chamberlain?
All right, so,
Nice. Is Rochester's up?
yeah.
East Rochester.
So I am Andrea Lancy, the principal of East Rochester School this year, and I'm incredibly proud of the East Rochester School staff and students. We started the year with a school-wide theme of One Team, One Dream, and this has been an overarching theme for our year. And I think that all of the data reflects that we have the collaborative efforts of everyone. Our kindergarten and 1st grade data reflects 2 cohorts of students who have had 1 and 2 years of full implementation of CKLA. The data is impressive, with 94% of kindergarten students and 84% of 1st grade students on grade level for reading based on the DIBELS assessment. So I am very hopeful for the future, knowing that that 1st grade group has had 2 full years of implementation. And we're seeing the success, so super excited about that. On the next slide, you're going to look at math cohort data, and these results reflect the cumulative efforts of teachers, special educators, and Title I interventionists. We, as a school-wide Title I school, were very fortunate to have 2 funded positions through Title I that help us focus on math. These positions helped us push into core time for grades 2 and 3, who were really struggling with math at mid-year when we reflected. These positions helped us to push into core time for grades 2 and 3 to support students during their math instruction. Additionally, these interventionists were able to provide targeted instruction outside of this time during intervention blocks, and we saw significant growth in grades 3 and 4 in their math skills. On the third slide, we see the NEWA ELA cohort data. All grades maintained and grew from the year before. So we celebrate that as a direct result of targeted interventions at all grade level. I'd like to highlight grade 2, who made significant progress from the winter to spring. In the winter, we had 48% of our students on grade level for reading. You don't see that reflected in that data because this is spring to spring. But collaboratively, we made adjustments to instruction within the core and outside of the core time, and that in the spring improved from 48% to 75% on grade level for grade 2. One of the things that was adjusted this year was the master schedule. There was a focus on creating protected teaching blocks of no less than 45 minutes. This allowed teachers at all grade levels to implement not only CKLA, but math core in larger chunks of time. And I would also like to thank the building aide, librarian, and paraeducators who filled in for absences so that we were able to protect the reading specialists and other intervention times so that students were able to really access that time. Next year, there will be continued targeted coaching for CKLA, as Sarah had explained. We also would like to focus on attendance so that we can maximize the time for our students to have on instruction and minimize any learning loss, because we do have groups of students who have lots of absences, and that definitely impacts their learning. And we'd also like to focus on the social emotional learning to attend to the SEL needs as well.
Any questions for East Rochester?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Do you, off the top of your head, know how many classrooms piloted the new math program in your
So-
building?
Within East Rochester, we did have quite a few pilot teachers. I believe we had a kindergarten pilot teacher, a first grade pilot teacher, a fourth grade, and a fifth grade. So out of 13 teachers, there were 4 pilot teachers who did, you know, 2 different. Yeah. Well, they did both. They did iReady and then they did Reveal. So, you know, I do think that reflects. Yes.
So with both, I'm going to ask you both,
Sure.
and again, it's probably going to be for the rest of you as well. But it looks as though the trend is kind of, with only 2 of you, the trend is showing that the math scores are lower. And then I was going to kind of mention just with the new math thing, do you think that was an issue? Because the ELA scores are higher. So I didn't know if we thought that was it just because we were piloting new math groups, or are we just focusing more on ELA?
I only had about 18 that piloted, so I don't think that would reflect too much in the data. We have been focusing on ELA for 2 years. We've had a lot of professional development, fidelity to the core program, so teachers are really into the ELA. And next year, we're going to start with the math, so they'll have lots of training in math. It's been a long time since we've had math training.
And I guess my follow-up to that is, I just hope that when we turn that focus, we just keep those, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's hard, where as a board, we need to give you those supports,
Yeah.
whether it's reading supports or math support. So I just encourage you guys, if these scores are the way they are, how do we maintain that and give you the supports that you need, and then work on math? Because I think these are amazing, and I think we just need to make sure we're providing the right supports.
Yeah, and I'll talk to that at the end of all this.
Okay.
All right,
Any other questions, folks?
East Rochester,
Thank you.
we're going to move on to Gonick.
All right, good evening, everybody. Greg Brown from Gonick. Happy to be talking to you for the first time. So super proud of our kindergarten this year. With some of the social emotional needs that we had and some other significant challenges, the growth was really incredible from the beginning of the year. And what's cool about that is, as I sit down and do my end of the year meetings with teachers, you know, when you're in the day-to-day in the thick of things, it's, you know, the teachers are like, you know, they're exhausted, they're tired, they're wondering if they're doing any good, right? And then we sit back and we reflect as to look how far these kids came from the beginning of the year. It's awesome to have those conversations. First grade, again, we really worked a lot on push and support. We tried to get them as much of they're a challenging group, but we used our interventionist. She was originally going to focus on math, but we really saw a need to double dip with ELA, so we were kind of their scores, although I wouldn't say they reflect it as much as I'd like to, they did come a long way as well, so proud of them as well. We'll go ahead and move on. Our math data, again, super proud. So if you look at second and third grade, excellent growth throughout the year. Really proud that they worked really hard. In fourth and fifth grade, I'm gonna say the same. I've got the same notes for ELA. Our fourth grade is an interesting cohort, and our ELA numbers are really similar, and that's going to be a grade that we're targeting in fifth grade next year. With again, and I'll speak to a little bit of what we're going to do differently next year at the end, but we are really going to go after them. Our fifth grade, both in math and ELA, I really truly don't believe that their scores reflect their ability. I think, I joked, but our younger kids were really incentivized by the idea of duct taping me to the wall and some other things, and extra recess and popsicles, and they're taking these tests seriously. Well, our fifth grade was just it was hard to hook them in. So we're going to look at different ways of motivating those older kids as well to make sure that they're focusing on the tests and really giving their best effort. What else did I have here? So as far as for next year, fortunate, I did have a significant group of staff that are willing to come in on the 20th, which is the day after they really technically have to be there. We're going to look at the master schedule. And being my first year at Gonic, we made some changes, but there were some things you kind of want to sit back and see how things go before you come in and clean the slate, right? But we found a lot of areas where we can add student contact time by manipulating the schedule a little bit differently. We're losing our 2 reading specialists, one to retirement, one to another district, which is a lot of talent walking out the door, but it also, with that, brings us some opportunity for change because they've been there for a while, things have been their way. So we're looking forward to some of the changes we can make too to increase the student contact time and really boost those older grades numbers. Take any questions?
Questions?
So when you said that you think the scores don't reflect their ability, are there any other testing that you do besides NEWA that can reflect what you feel their ability?
Yeah, I think if you I just over the last few days I've been going through report cards and different things, and the kids really have made a lot of growth, and if you look at their report cards and just being in the classrooms with them and seeing them work, I just really think that we saw it, you can see it, you can tell, you know how fast they're going in the tests and stuff, and as much as you try to slow them down and get them to make sure they're taking it seriously, I think we can do a better job of that going forward.
I just think, and again, I don't speak for the rest of the board, but I mean, this is one way to look at what your students are doing, but if you feel that there's other ways to show it, whether it's, I think one time it was IXL, I mean, if you're saying that this isn't reflected, I would like to see the data that shows what they can, you know what I mean, whether it's the report cards, because I mean, we can look at this and say, how do we help you, or some of these scores aren't great, or but it's a snapshot.
Right.
But if you have a different snapshot that changes that, next time I would just like to see that, because I think that's important to make sure that we're noting.
No, I think we have a lot of really bright kids and hardworking teachers, and I just I think it's like you said, it is a snapshot, and I know they have bright futures, so I don't want to take this as their one thing.
Okay, I agree.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to Maple Street data. Dr. Mahoney was unable to be here tonight. She wanted to let you all know that she wishes she could be here, but she had a family emergency. So I'm going to actually read exactly what she wrote so that I'm not saying something differently. So we started to see the benefits of CKLA in our primary grades K to 2. We started in kindergarten at 30% grade level this year and made progress, as you can see. In first grade, we started at 79 and maintained that score throughout the school year, which is also great. We will continue with targeted instructional PD support next year. So that's the K and 1. Here's the math. Where we focused heavily on reading this year, I feel this impacted our math progress. This is always a fine balancing act, and next year, because we were able to hire a second special education teacher, our hope is to provide some much-needed math interventions for our neediest students to assist in our math growth. This will help our students and teachers find a solid balance between the two subjects. I'm confident we will continue to see progress in this area, especially with our new math curriculum coming on board. And here's the ELA data. Reading is an area we celebrated greatly this year. We did complete a complete overhaul of our intervention time this year, making sure each grade level had at least 30 minutes of strategic and targeted intervention in reading and math. We are going to continue focusing on the current 4th grade cohort, as this is an identified area of need for us. With the changes in our intervention model working, we will continue to utilize our personalized learning binders. These binders have reading and math skill codes that are specific to each individual student. During our intervention time, while the teacher works with our neediest students to target specific goals, other students are rotating through the personalized learning list in this binder. These codes are taken directly from their CKLA Amplify program and IXL Reflex Math program. This ensures targeted instruction is occurring in real time as well as enrichment. With the new math curriculum, iReady, we will soon be integrating that program into the binders. And Dr. Mahoney says, overall, I'm proud of our staff. With the help of some key staff, our integrated arts teacher, building aide, paras, we were able to protect the time our specialists were pulled out of the building, or pulled out of their classrooms. For next year, we'll continue to focus on targeted professional development for staff, specifically on scaffolding core instruction to further PL in class. We will also continue with our intervention model as we saw a great deal of growth. Any questions for Maple? She had a pretty in-depth, summary, so.
She was here though. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, we're gonna move on to McClellan.
Megan Jurek, Principal McClelland. So kindergarten continues to be a highlight for us, with just 31% at the beginning of kindergarten being on benchmark. We've moved to 73. Another highlight of the kindergarten data is that at the beginning of the year, only 4 students were above benchmark, and we now have 27 students moving on to 1st grade who are above benchmark. That is 57% of our kindergarten students will move into 1st grade above benchmark. It speaks volume to the personalized instruction they received in kindergarten and then our CKLA program. Next slide. And so now our scores are not as high as we'd like to see, and I just want to say it's not from a lack of effort of our staff or our students working hard. I want to give a shout out to our team for being extremely flexible and willing to support in so many capacities this year. This year we structured our What I Need win blocks around classroom and grade level specific times. Next year we are going to adopt Susan Hall's model of walk to intervention, which you heard from walk to math. You may have heard it before as walk to read. And this is where we take a cohort of students, so all of 1st grade would be pulled together. We'd look at their needs, and then we're going to leverage staff strengths and expertise, and we're going to distribute students that way. So rather than students being in their classroom for win time with their core teacher and having them differentiate there, we're going to spread students out amongst the grade level. We're going to really utilize classroom teachers to provide the intervention if needed. That means that we can put our high achievers in one class and really push them forward too. And so we're going to change our model of what win looks like. We're learning from our teammates across the district. So we are going to pilot data binders, as Maple Street Magnet School has used and been quite successful for in grades 1 to 2 next year, and see how that goes, with hopes that we can continue to implement those in the coming years. In addition, we are going to increase our instructional coaching, and that will be done through administration and teacher leaders. We have some really promising instructional practices in some of our classrooms, and that shows in their classroom-specific data, and also trends across the last few years for certain classrooms. So we're hoping to really leverage that and spread that throughout the school. I want to say thank you for the addition of a school counselor. So that school counselor is going to help to account for some social emotional needs, as well as attendance. So we need to understand why students are coming to school, and that's a big piece of an additional counselor they can help with. This year, 45 students, which accounts for 13% of the population at McClellan, missed 20 or more days, which is collectively 1,287 days of instruction. 56% of these students performed well below benchmark, and an additional 10% performed below benchmark. This summer, we are going to work to create a strategic plan to build the bridges between family and school so we can support regular school attendance. As well as the summer, we will host professional learning sessions around data systems. We need to start looking at the small pieces of data, not just the NEWA, not just the DIBELS, and not the events of the benchmark. We need to look at our small pieces of data. So this summer, our teams will work together. We will identify what that looks like, what those pieces of data are, how frequently we need to look at them. We will come up with regularly scheduled data teams that will happen more frequently. And then we hope to incorporate some transparent tracking in classrooms, which allows students to work towards data-driven collective goals. So that's something like a poster in a classroom that has little cars along the road, right? The class is working on oral reading fluency. So here's where we want everyone to be. Everyone has their own cool design car. Nobody knows whose car it is, but collectively we're working towards getting everyone to a certain point. And a classroom looks at a goal, they'd all work towards it, and then they'd work towards another goal so that we have common data-driven goals.
Go ahead, Karen.
I like the fact that you're coming up with some really good ideas because you're noticing that you need improvement. So that's amazing, and I just wanna commend you on that. Do you know how many kids are coming for the summer for like summer school or?
For summer learning, we believe we have 70 McClellan students.
Is that a lot?
There were 130 registered for West Side, and of the 130, 70 of them were McClellan students.
Yeah, we have two sites, the Chamberlain, the east side and the west side is McClellan, so we have 100, and Kim might know it better, it's like 150 confirmed registrations.
Now, did you reach out to so I'm assuming that's
We-
why, so I just
we
wanted
did.
to make sure. So
Any-
you just reached out to those students that you thought would benefit from
Any
it?
student below benchmark, and then any student with any attendance concerns, they got a personalized letter from me. And then they got a call from their classroom teacher as well.
And you said it was over 70?
I believe we're at 70. Some didn't return their forms, but that was the initial number.
Thank you.
So the attendance policy that's in place now, do you think that was in effect, well, because I think you mentioned the attendance as well, do you think that was a big reason why? There's not much accountability on the parents right now with the attendance policy. And I know right now we're reviewing that, changing it, I think, you guys think that'll help? If you've seen what we're changing, do you think that'll help with getting kids to school next year?
I think attendance absolutely had an impact on what students were able to learn, regardless if you were someone who was well below benchmark or you were somebody on benchmark. You didn't reach your full potential this year if you were not in school.
Yeah, I think that's why we want to change that policy to make it more accountable, put the kid, the parents more accountable for their kids to school.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Nancy Lowndes School. Hi, everybody, I'm Sue Bazeski. I'm principal of Nancy Lowndes School. Unfortunately, my time at Nancy Lowndes will be ending soon, but I'm glad to be here tonight. So first I want to start out by thanking all my staff for their hard work this year. Being a small school, we have unique mobility and where we can put everybody to fill in those gaps, and all my staff has stepped up this year to fill in. And so we can maintain consistency, because that was my goal this year, is no matter who's not there or where we need to find coverage, I want to be as consistent as possible, especially for our small group instruction. So staff worked really hard to make sure students had small group instruction and allowed our reading specialists to meet with their groups on a consistent basis. So looking at our first slide, the K1 DIBELS data, I'm so proud to celebrate our K team. I know that's been a theme, but they've accomplished so much this year. So at the beginning of the year, because one thing we need to remember, that K is 18 students. So at the beginning of the year, when we first assessed our kindergarten, we had one student on grade level. 17 out of 18 were out, but we ended the year with 16 out of 18 on or even above. So that K group really worked really hard, and they use that station rotation model, so they have a lot of small group instruction. So that's something that I will be passing on as a recommendation to really have first grade also really use those small group, because we see the most success with kids just being able to have more time in that small group instruction. On to the next slide. So I'd like to highlight second grade. They started the year with only 48% students on benchmark. And despite having a high social emotional need in this cohort of students, in a class of 22, they ended the year with 62% on or above benchmark, and that really went above what I expected. So that teacher worked really, really hard, and our staff worked really hard to put in as much help for that social emotional need, and it shows in the growth that they made. And the next slide, all the grades made growth and made improvements throughout the year, and even though it's not where I was hoping or what I wanted to be, kind of what Greg had alluded to, I know they made growth and made much success, either looking at report card NYC data, looking at our special ed population. A lot of those kids met their growth targets. Maybe they haven't made benchmark, but a lot of our kids, and we focused on that. And during the spring NEWA, was we had the kids, they knew what their target was and what to meet their goal. And it really motivated a lot of the kids to really try hard, and we try to have as much influence, and we actually sent out parent encouragement. So I had parents fill out like a Google form, and we printed them off for the kids so they had like not just our encouragement, so we try to create that home school connection, and so they knew how important the test was. So thinking about next year, I'm excited that Nancy Lab will have a full-time guidance counselor, because this will help our student population who, since I've been there, have only had access to a guidance counselor for 2 days a week, which is a lot. Even though we're a small school, it's still a lot for a guidance counselor to do, to handle things in just 2 days. So it's gonna be, I think it's gonna impact Nancy Loud tremendously to have somebody there every single day to help, not with the social emotional needs, but also with that attendance piece. Because we can make those really great connections with families, because we are a small school. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Nancy Loud. And I also been working already closely with Mrs. Nancy, who will be the principal next year. We're making a very robust transition plan. So as we've talked about, how to focus on the areas of need from our data.
Any questions? Comments? Just to clarify too, you have one teacher per grade in your
Correct,
school.
yeah,
So
K-1, yeah.
when we look at percentages, like one child can make a
Correct,
huge
yes,
swing
yeah, and
in
so
this.
a lot, a lot of the work that I do with my staff when we look at this data is that we really look, obviously we look at everybody, but we try to look at those kids, who are those kids that we can really focus on that's gonna, who can we move, because there's some kids that you may not be able to move to benchmark or above benchmark, but who can we really focus on and really give that robust instruction and push along. And it gives the teachers a little bit, because when you look at your whole class of 22 kids, you're like, oh, I gotta push all these kids ahead. But if it's, they're able to really focus on just a few, not that they don't focus on everybody, I don't say that. But it's just one of those things that we try to break it down, because it is a unique situation where we only have, our grade 4 is 13 kids. Grade 1 is 12 students, so it changes.
I think it's gonna be interesting to see, like, the collaboration between all of you guys is amazing, because if something's not working, I think it was, Mr., I don't wanna call you out, but, like, you had commented about how you took something from Maple Street School and Miss Lancey going over to you and the two of you collaborating. I think it's commendable, because I think when you have 8 elementary schools in one city, it makes it very difficult, but it also, you have 7 other people that you could go to say, hey, what's working for you? So I like the fact that you guys are all communicating with each other and saying, hey, this isn't working for me, what could I do better? So I'm excited to see what you can take and bring it over to Nancy Loud, so.
Yeah. I'm very happy and it makes my evening a little bit easier. She's gonna be there, so.
School Street.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Booton, the principal at School Street. I want to start out by thanking the amazing team of professionals at School Street School. We, like Nancy Loud, we're a small school, smaller than Nancy Loud, and so one of each level, limited staff, but the staff worked collaboratively all year to help our students feel safe, loved, and ready to learn. With one open para position and a shortage of subs, our paras were extremely flexible and able to fill in when and where needed with little to no notice. I was very impressed with the collaboration between our reading interventionist and the teachers, especially in the work they did with kindergarten and grade 1, which you can see in this slide. So our kindergarten class came in this year with 0 out of 10 students at benchmark. And at the end of the year, 2 students were at benchmark and 4 students were above benchmark. Only 1 student who transferred in at the beginning of May was well below benchmark, but even that student showed tremendous gains. And I think if he had been here all year, would have definitely been at benchmark or above. Our first grade class, which again had a lot of social, emotional needs, started out with 3 of the 10 students at benchmark, and at the end of the year, 5 of the 11, we gained a student, I think in February, were at benchmark, and 3 were above benchmark. So great growth in those 2 classes. And I think a lot of that was the interventionist working with the teachers and looking at the data and really able to move those kids along. If we go to the next one, our math, I'm very proud of our second graders. They did 92% both in math, and you'll see in NEWA both they're 92%. It's a smaller class. Well, all our classes are smaller. But they also, I think it's a good, strong class, but they also benefited from the 2 years of CKLA, the consistency and the fidelity in the teaching of the 2 teachers. So, and also their kindergarten where it was introduced. So, and then if you want to look at the ELA, so, I think with 3rd grade and 4th grade, part of what I feel is they have the SAS testing in April, and then they turn around and a month later they take their NEWA. So I think that they're tested out. They're really done, and we really tried to incentivize them with the SAS to get those scores up, and then we tried with the NEWA, but I think they're really tired of testing at that point, and you do the incentives, but I think they're just ready to go. And our 4th graders, they're ready to move on out of because we only go up to 4th grade. So, but we're very proud of the progress they made. They did a great job. And then, looking ahead at next year, some of the things we're looking at doing, we're offering a summer refresher program at our school. It's only 4 days where we'll meet with the students that want to be there, but we're also using incentives for them to do work at home, whether it's online or reading, using the kickoff program from the Rotary, using that program to help really keep them learning over the summer so we don't have such a summer slide when they come back. So we're looking at that. That'll be staffed by our teachers. We're hoping to be fully staffed next year. We were minus a para this year, and have more subs in place. We're hoping that the pool is a little deeper. The staff is committed. Our staff is committed to participating in the PD that's going to be offered by the district and the core programs. It's a very, the staff really is enthusiastic. They want to do well. They want their kids to do well, and I think that's a real tribute to them. And then partially through Title I funding, we are pleased to have a full-time guidance counselor, and I think you've heard that across the board. Next year, we'll be placing a greater focus on the culture and climate of our school. And we want to make sure that when the students come to school every day, they're ready to come in and learn. That whatever, they have on their minds, they can just kind of leave at the door and come in and learn, and we can help them through that process. And together we want to work on focusing on attendance. I think in our grade 3, part of the reason that grade 3 had lower scores was we had several students in there with attendance issues. And I think if we could get those students there on a regular basis, which our goal is next year to do that, their scores will go up. Also through Title I funding, we are hoping to hire a part-time math interventionist next year. We had no one there this year to provide intervention for math. And the final note with this, my first year at SSS and my first year in Rochester, I've had to learn a lot, and I think next year I'm going to be better able to support the students, the staff, and the parents in school.
Sorry. You said that you're doing the summer refresher for 4 days. Why is it only 4 days?
Well, part of the program is to have them do work at home, and it's funded through Title I. We're using Title I funding. We didn't want to compete with the summer school program, so we're just doing it 1 day, but are going to have them doing things at home, and then they'll come in and they'll be rewarded for so there's incentives for what they do at home. But we're thinking we'll get a better response if we just do 4 weeks, 1 day a week.
So can they do both? Can they do the summer program and this?
They could potentially, yes.
Okay.
We only had, we had 10 sign up for the summer school program. One was a parent, so we took her out. And then 2 of them, she might be a little awkward, but it's okay. And then 2 of them didn't get their paperwork in. So only 8 of our students ended up going, and had I known that, but you just don't know, it's all playing out at the same time. And if this is successful this year, then we would look to increase it. But we don't know what we're going to get for numbers, so we're starting small and going from there.
You mentioned that you have your teachers coming in to do that summer program, right? Is that a volunteer program for your?
No, they're paid through Title I funding.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that.
They're committed, I'm just not sure they're that
volunteering.
committed.
So is there, with the focus of the summer program, actually trying to get the work done at home, if you will, the support for the parents to make sure that if the child needs help with the work or whatever, I mean, we joke about the math, but I've been there. Daddy, that's not how we do division. Okay? So, again, the support for the parents to be able to assist their child so that it's being done properly and we're actually making gains with it. So.
Right, and we've talked about that we would have open communication with the parents. I'll be the go-to, but then the teachers will have times where they can answer emails or questions. But some of what they're going to do can be online, through various programs that might not need parent assistance, but the other part, they might need that, and we've looked at that and said we'd be available to help.
Okay. I'm sure you would be, and I just want
And
to make
it's
sure that
nothing-
the parents understand that.
Right.
They're not sitting there going, I don't know how to do this, you're on your
Right, and there's no new material being presented. It's all review of what they've done, just to keep their minds going, just so they don't just slide into summer and.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If it's all on, do they have to have their own devices, or are we giving them devices if they don't have it?
Most of them have their own devices. We've talked to parents, and our Chromebooks are all being inventoried, so we haven't gone to that next step, what if they don't have a device, but we're talking to individual parents.
So if they don't have a device, do you know what your next step is?
I was going to see if we could lend out iPads, but we haven't gotten that far.
All right.
We still don't know how many children are going to, and they don't have to do all 4 days. They can do 1 day. And it's also a time for them, because we're a very small school, very family oriented, for them to get together and see their friends. Because even though it's a neighborhood school, some of them don't really get to go out and be with their friends. You know, they have to be inside or they don't. So we just want to encourage that camaraderie.
Which I think is amazing, and if they're meeting one time a week, but then there's stuff at home, I just don't want somebody to not want to join them.
Right,
They don't
and we'll
recognize.
address that, we just haven't gotten to that point yet. I've been talking to the Title I Director Mackenzie about how we can implement this. Initially, we thought if we could let them use the Chromebooks, even if it's just those weeks, but now they're back in inventory, so we have to look at that. Most of the students, from what the parents have said, do have devices at home.
Any more questions or comments?
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing?
Good evening, everyone. Dustin Gray, the principal at the William Allen School, here to talk to you about our data over the course of this year. We had a great year of growth at the early grade levels. I want to start off by talking through the literacy data and highlighting both the K-1-2 teams and the collaboration they've had with the interventionists that we've had on staff for this year. Our kindergarten group grew by more than 65%. We had single-digit proficiency rate at the beginning of this year, and we were able to get up to 75% across the kindergarten grade. In addition to that, we did have one kindergarten classroom where every student has scored in the proficiency or above proficient range by the end of this year. So those are definitely accolades we want to have. Those are conversations that came about from continual data review. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But we made a conscious decision this year to look at data monthly or 2 times a month while micro data came in and some of the smaller assessments to be able to be a little bit more responsive to the students' needs. First grade was an area where we put a lot of emphasis on this year. We did have a rather significant staffing shortage, so we made some shifts and changes throughout the year, and we tried to put more support into there. We moved from a pull-out model where students were doing the walk to read. We found that the students weren't quite ready to work through that model, so we started doing more push-in, and we saw some late gains from the winter months until now. So we're pleased with the adaptability of the data to be able to have 47% of the kids at or above grade level in first grade this year. The math data reflects a similar conversation to what my colleagues have had around the emphasis on math. We shifted one math interventionist when we had a reading specialist opening to fill in. So we went all in on literacy a lot this year. So I want to commend the math interventionist for pivoting and working with us to be able to fill the needs of the students, because we had really dedicated the flex block, or what I need. You've heard other colleagues talk about the win block. And we built 45-minute blocks of instructional time, and it could only be done through literacy this year. Next year, we're going to be looking at doing it through literacy and math as a response to this. We also, I think that this is an accolade that kind of goes from central office through the board. I want to say I'm really appreciative of sort of the aggressive hiring that we were able to put in place to fill our openings that we had this year into next year. We are more fully staffed now than what we had been in several years going back with key openings, and have some really good staff members being able to provide our interventionist block, and we have lots of interventionists there for it. We have 1.5 math interventionists ready to go next year. The 0.5 hasn't been hired, and that's the one that we'll be sharing with School Street. And we're happy to have those interventionists back in and fully staffed and ready to go. We like the gains that we had seen through ELA, and as colleagues have said, that's an attribute to the CKLA program. I wanted to highlight grade 2 both within math and in ELA. The gains that were made, this is looking at 60% proficient or better, but then there's also a top 40% that we can look at. And in both ELA and math, second grade lifted not only the students that were kind of on that cuspy range up, but also the students who were already at proficient and moved them up into the top 40th percentile. So we have a large group of students that are scoring in the top 40th percentile nationally in ELA and in math in second grade. As you know, William Allen School poses some unique circumstances and some different challenges. We talked a lot about the absentee rate of students and being here and ready to learn. We've talked about incentives. We've talked about creating a sense of agency with children, making sure that they can control more of their own learning, because the incentive level does drop off when you get to the upper grade levels, and that doesn't get reinvigorated at middle school and high school. I mean, we can't dangle more shiny things to be able to get them to work harder at it, so they have to take a little bit more control of their own learning. And we feel like a lot of that starts at home. And we want to start working with the families more often to help circumvent some of the school phobias and some of the issues that we have with being able to get children into school. We're pleased through some of our Title I funding that this summer we're creating an onboarding program for families when they are new to the school, and we're going to start by rolling this off with all of our incoming kindergarten families when they join us at K-Camp. We're using Title I funds to sort of embrace what it must look like to be a new parent coming into a district, any district, much less maybe not knowing where all the resources are, maybe not knowing the simple things as far as our new Rooms app that we're rolling out through ThrillShare, and creating a way where we can have social worker, guidance counselor, classroom teacher, administration be able to meet with every new family when they come in and devote upwards, sometimes it might be 20 minutes. You know, they might be a little bit more tech savvy, and we can help them get on all the different apps and programs. Most importantly, making sure that all the data they're entering that goes into our database is accurate as well, so we're not getting a lot of missed phone numbers and emails in those regards. But also being able to embrace the fact that we might be able to sit down with them for 45 minutes to an hour and help with being able to access local food sources or other civic-minded organizations that might be able to help out. We have a transient population, and they might be moving in between schools, and they might be moving in and out of Rochester. So we're just wanting to own that a little bit more on our end and be able to provide more of a wraparound service for those families. And whatever level of success we see, we are going to try to scale it up with all new families that come in 1st through 5th. And then depending upon where we're at, we're going to keep pushing that up. We'll be bringing in 1st grade families to offer up that same level of service, with a hope that by the end of the year, we've been able to at least offer that to every grade level, a parent who wants to K to 5.
Any questions, comments?
Getting the parent involvement, I mean, I'm big on that. Trust me, student success is with successful, or, parent involvement, so.
And community engagement is key, and I think there's a lot of parents that are willing and they want to get into school and help, and they want to be in and be part of their child's education, but to be quite honest, we know the last 3 years have been a little bit atypical. So we get a chance to kind of redirect how and what that looks like. And I think families are excited for it, and the staff are going to be doing the summer work. It's very exciting.
I just really appreciate the fact that, we're starting to really try to get the parents more involved in their children's education. I think that's a big key to where we've been short in the past. And it's easy to blame the teachers as parents that my kid's not learning. But, learning starts at home. And I think we really need to impose more responsibility on the parents to be involved and seek out the resources if needed to support their children. So.
Especially at the early years when it's that formative portion, being able to give them easy to use activities.
The years we're looking at are key development years of education. Grade 4 math is, I mean, if you haven't figured it out then, or you're missing it then, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're on a fast slide down behind.
And I know we've talked a bit about the math program, but just the idea of moving with a very solid, concrete representation at the early grade levels before it moves to the abstract level, I think will help with some of that 3rd to 4th grade that you're talking about. So we're pleased to have this new program coming in.
Sure. Mr. Gray, I know you mentioned the transient population that you have, and I know every school has some element of transiency. Do you have any sense of what impact of your absenteeism is in that transient population versus
I think absenteeism is a significant impact across all the population, making sure that students are there. But I mean, when it's transient and you're moving in and out, there's a lot of times that that's a 3 to 5 day path on either side of it. Families here, but haven't quite made their way into the system yet and registered, and there's a lot of movement that happens there with it. But we want to be able to address that sooner rather than later, and I think the absentee issue is huge.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other comments or questions, folks?
So I just have a comment for all of you. I just thank you, because I think it's kind of tough sometimes to come up here and talk about things that we're struggling with, and we're all a team. So I appreciate you, and I think everybody else does. And I also, because I have to write everything down because I'm horrible. And you had kind of mentioned, like, once you get to 4th grade, if you don't know the math, and when we look at all of the information that you've given us, our kindergarten scores are amazing. I mean, 84, 94, 81, 89, I mean, I could go down, but that shows us that they're getting the fundamentals, and I think that's really important, because I think when you start seeing those kindergartners move on, I think our scores are going to improve, and I think that's really great. But again, I think I said it in the beginning, when you guys need support, I think hearing it at the end of the year is great, because we need to look at what we're getting. So I know that we've said we've added guidance counselors and math supports and stuff, but not that we're saying you're gonna get anything that you want, but I mean, letting us know what you feel you need so that, you know, our superintendent can look at that and when we're looking at our budget, because I think we're all one team and we just need to work together. So I just want to thank you.
I just want to add to that, and we can still answer questions, but this team is amazing, the work that they put into looking at data and doing the best for kids. I'm just so honored to work with them. As a district, we have a lot of math training coming up, so all of our early release days are either math or CKLA. That is our big focus next year, ELA and math. And so we've already booked them for the early release days. We have CKLA coaching within the building, so we have coaches coming from out of state and just working with teachers. And then we have that alignment of faculty meeting so that our teachers can get additional time of professional development. Because it's hard to pull them out now, so we have to think about when do we have a day that, you know, students are here. But amazing team.
Now, I pointed out, or I'm going to point out just a few observations that I've made, and I know that we focused on some of these observations, like absences, it seems across the board that is an issue. We're looking at our policy on absenteeism and so on and so forth, so hopefully between changing policy and implementing that, hopefully things change. If I'm not mistaken, it seems that grades 4 and 5 are sort of our areas where we need to focus a lot of attention on. And if there's, you know, if you can relate to us what needs you might have going forward, that would be great. Transiency is certainly an issue that's always been at the forefront, for sure. And as Karen mentioned, our K-1 scores are really good too. So, but I do have a couple questions sort of across the board. Do you find, now we're in a post-COVID era, is behavior still sort of a major issue in all the schools? I mean, and I welcome any input you might have as to what we can do to help.
When you talk about 4th and 5th grade, I think that is a very significant impact on the 4th and 5th grade level, because it creates a sense of being disenfranchised a bit with they're already having some behavioral issues against kind of the system. Then when the system wants to test, they don't really want to put that effort into it. I would say social emotional learning for 4th and 5th grade would be a big start as we work through that across the district. We need a lot of areas for students to apply that. A lot of the kids know at the younger grade levels, they can talk about kind of the colors and their feelings. But then when you start getting into the tricky years, sort of the adolescent years, when they don't want to necessarily talk about the color as much. It's all inside, but we need to make sure that they're able to address it.
Anyone else have any thoughts, comments, or welcome?
I think to piggyback that, there's a significant need for mental health. And our counselors are working as hard as they can, and all of our staff do as much as they can. But we really need to employ the community and working as partners with us, because we have some significant mental health concerns in our buildings. And it's hard to believe, but it does start in kindergarten for students.
Oh, it starts at 3.
So,
We see it in the childcare center. The views are totally different than they were 4 years ago.
With our new staff coming on board that we've hired, or I don't know if we've hired, the new positions we've created, I assume that'll help across the board with everybody. So looking forward, I mean, as you look at the problems and issues that you're dealing with, let us know what we can do to help you all.
So I think our hope is to be more proactive instead of reactive, and the additional staff really helps us to be able to do that.
Just sort of a basic question, do students know, like when you're bringing up all this data, they know they're being tested, right? Is there undue stress on them when they are sitting there being tested? I'm just kind of curious because I don't remember what my own kids were.
I think a lot of times it's student and family dependent. Like, we try to, I just think speaking for Gonic School, we try to make it as fun as possible so that to take some of that stress off, and hope that some of the incentives and things, they're not necessarily thinking about how hard or stressful the test is, that it's, it's like if I work hard, if I take my time and I do this, we're gonna get to, have a popsicle or extra recess or, like I said earlier, duct tape Mr. Brown on the wall, those sorts of things. But there are a lot of kids also that, especially the kids that may struggle more social emotionally or behaviorally that, that either A, are not really invested in it, or B, just could care less because, this doesn't affect my report card, this, what do I get, does it really matter to me? And then you have the kids that just put pressure on themselves in general anyway because they want to be the best. So I think there's all different levels.
I know for me, I go into every classroom just because we have a set schedule when they're going to be taking the test, and I have an honest conversation about why they take this test. It's to show what they know, and they may come across questions that they don't know, and that's okay. You just do your best, and just really this is a chance for you to show what you've learned so far and where we are in the year, and it just so they're not just taking in tests to take a test, so they as much as we can at the elementary level, make them understand why this test is important, why we're doing it. Not just you have to do it, but.
So, do we think they were over talking the test up to kids, adding too much of that psych out? I'm just trying to relate, and it was a long time since I was sitting in, but I'm gonna look at you because you're the principal and I never get to duct tape you to a wall. But,
You wanted to.
yeah, a little bit. But it was like you showed up one day, it was like fill in the bubbles. Okay. I don't remember having to talk to me for weeks about the importance of the test. It's that theory of you study so much, you fail the test, but if you just show up and took the test, you probably ace it. Are we overdoing it?
I think a lot of us have worked really hard to make testing not an event, but just a small marker in their instructional journey. So I think there are some things that we are incentivizing because there's a new weight that's on it that we're all really looking for, so we need the kids to know the importance. But I do think for the most part, it's not just like, oh, this big test we have to do and there's a big rah-rah every time. It's okay, today's a show me what you know, here it is. And we're trying to teach kiddos self-direction and resiliency and just trying your best all the time. So I don't think for the most part it's a huge event, but there are certain things, like New Hampshire SAS this year, we all embrace that and we're like, let's do it. Where it's a big thing.
I just want to say when we reflect with students as well, I think it's important to note that what we focus on is their individual student growth, and EWA allows us to look at that. DIBELS also has a way to look at that. So when they're taking the assessment at the beginning of the year, our goal for them is not you have to reach benchmark, you have to reach benchmark. It's what is your individual goal. I mean, we want them all to be on benchmark. We obviously want all students to be successful in reading and math, but it's also important for them and for us to look at where they started and where they need to go for their individual pathways. So I think that's an important piece.
I'm glad you said that, Sarah, because that's what kids get excited about. I made my growth target, they can see where they've come, and they really truly do get excited about that. Not all of them, but
But, and also to the, kind of the Christmas tree bubble dots, you would do that Scantron, and then 2 months later, you get a letter mailed home. The kids get this in real time, right there at that moment. So you do have the kids who put the number right up there, like, this is my goal that I want to work towards, and that's a good goal for, if it works for them, it should be continued to be supported. But when you see a kid bounding down the hall that they're excited that they made their growth goal for the year, that's impressive, or when
So
they see their growth.
the testing's very different from when you did it. It is very different. Yeah, I used to hate that. That was stressful for us.
Iowa state testing.
Yeah.
It's been a little while.
It's been a while, yeah.
I hammered the answers in a rock.
Yeah. No, that's, yeah.
Fill in the bubble.
I don't need to give that another test, but I think it is true, it is a snapshot, it is one test. You know, you have potentially 23 to 25% of kids with disabilities that we know are not gonna make benchmarks, and they're included, so. Again, I think when you're looking at student scores and graduation and, not graduation from elementary, but when you're looking at all those other things, I think there's other things that you look at as well to say the student has progressed. And I think that's the important factor, is this is just one test at one time, so.
I have one last question. With the lack of school lunch funding, I guess, is that played into any kids not doing well, I guess, in school nowadays? Or is that kind of like always been there? Is it not a non-issue? I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of what it's like in the schools.
Are you referring to just pulling back from the COVID time where everybody got money?
Just want to make sure everybody has a food in their stomach and ready to go, not worrying about where they're going to get the next meal.
I don't think that that's necessarily a Rochester question.
Okay.
I think every child in the country deserves a lunch and a breakfast, and you shouldn't have to worry about where it comes from or anything like that. So I do think that does have an impact with kids from time to time, but they don't talk about it as much as they should.
Okay. That's all I have. Anyone else have questions, comments? Thank you all for coming. I know you all have a very tough job, and we appreciate everything that you're doing and your staff. So relay to your staff, we appreciate everything that they do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, staff work.
Anyone need a break? Transition time.
I know, we're here. It's the same thing.
That's the problem now. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
There's a seat for everyone in there.
Because we've done. That's all we need.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Oh, wow.
I think it's just us.
You got it.
We're all together. Middle, high.
One school.
It's just me.
Yeah.
One school, you're surrounded by all high school.
I'm in the middle. So I don't have any kindergarten data, unfortunately. So we're looking at math data. You know, our sixth grade obviously dropped from past years for sixth grade, but if we look at last year's sixth graders, they did progress to the 57. And then last year's seventh graders for math went up in eighth grade, stayed the same in eighth grade. So that's the grade level data for you. You know, we have, right now, we have 11 teams, so we have 4 sixth grade teams, we have 3 seventh grade teams, and 4 eighth grade teams. We did have to collapse one of the seventh grade teams this year. They've done pretty well throughout the year, considering, and a lot of the topics that have come up with attendance, behavior, social, emotional learning, those are all areas that definitely impact our students on a daily basis. We are fortunate enough to hopefully be adding that third AP position, which will benefit students, so we'll have one per grade level. Working on academics as well as behavioral approaches. So the ELA, English, meanwhile, Next slide is, it did go down. Obviously, the sixth graders coming from years past, and then the sixth graders last year into seventh grade dropped significantly, as well as the progression of from seventh to eighth from spring. In the fall, they definitely, you talked about topics of what impacts kids. Their numbers in the fall were a lot higher in all grade levels. You know, testing does impact them throughout the year. We have a lot of things that happen. We do NEWA fall, winter, and spring, and then we have New Hampshire SAS. So the SAS happens in April, and then NEWA comes in May as we're approaching the end of the year. So there's definitely some fatigue there by the end of the year while they get to that last assessment. You know, when you ask about food, I can't say about lunches or anything like that, but we have talked about how do we get, you know, snacks in their systems before each assessment. They are doing a lot of these assessments on multiple days, so it's challenging, but they're definitely topics that we've considered as we approach that. Incentive-wise, for the assessments, we didn't really focus on scores versus are you regulated and ready to assess. So after each assessment, we've had check-off lists of was I prepared, was I organized, was I a disruption? Because you're a middle schooler, you like to kind of fidget and agitate others as well as elementary students and high school. But that was one of the areas is what's our focus? And they had to kind of reflect on that by the end. So for one of the assessments for SAS, we had the highest team, they were given a pancake breakfast for the percentage, and then the highest grade level was given a kickball tournament. And they were really psyched. In seventh grade, actually won the kickball tournament, and BU, our seventh grade team, got the pancake. My responsibility for the pancake was syrup, because I have 5 kids, so I had to manage that, and we didn't run out. So those are some of the areas that we're talking about with incentives and trying to get them excited, not talking about it too much, but giving them focus as they move through the assessment. So definitely dropped in some of the things, and that's the looking forward, and then the other slides following, is some of the areas that we try to offer to kids outside of instruction in the daytime is each team offers tutoring. Sometimes it's weekly, it's already there, sometimes it has to be scheduled, but is there, students want to have tutoring. One of the other areas that we worked on starting in January is called Character Connections. It's a restorative practice. I went to a conference in the fall, really trying to implement it and worked with Mackenzie at central office, and we got 2 teachers to do it after school. So if there's a behavior, there's something we really want to teach and work on that approach. They work with a couple of our teachers about what was the problem, what happened there, how can we change that, and we're really trying to build relationships versus a detention, and say, all right, let's get you on track, and then let's see you in the hallway the next day, and how are you doing with your academics? So we've been working on that since January, and we're going to continue to do that next year. And each child has to present some sort of project to the person or people they've impacted. It's been going pretty well. So the other thing we're going to work on, particularly with New Hampshire SAS, is the modulars for math and ELA, and then also looking at NEWA data and drilling down, particularly for each student, with our curriculum advisors during our PLC times. And then within the classroom, reestablishing the priorities. What are our objectives? What's our targeted instruction? We're thinking about regular academic summatives, but as well as the assessments. And the last point is there's more slides for this, but is our approach with the New England League of Middle Schools. So it's an organization particularly for middle schools. I signed up for the school in this last summer, and with that membership, you're able to get resources. Teachers can go to webinars that are free. It could be about middle school business teacher or an advisory program. So we have access to those resources. I attended the workshop the 2-day workshop in Springfield in March, and I learned a lot about advisory, social emotional learning, teaming, specifically for the middle school model, flexible schedules. And I connected with Bill Downey, and we talked about an assessment. We worked on NELMS coming to our school to do an assessment. And so in May 3rd through 5th, they had a visit to Rochester Middle School. Prior to that, they did surveys, and I think it's on the next slide, but 711 of our students were surveyed, about 177 parents, 5 staff, support staff, and 73 faculty members. And that was prior to the visit. When they came and visited, they met with admin, they met with Mr. Pusey, Ms. Cotton, they met with every single person in a one-on-one interview. They also met with sort of cohort groups. They met with students, parents, and got their perspectives. And then they went into every single classroom
and observed every single classroom. They also stayed for after-school activities and any extracurricular activities. And so the next step is for them, they will give us an assessment. They're working on that. I should be getting that within the next week. And with that, there'll be recommendations, and that'll be about academic areas, behavior, advisory, teaming, anything that we need to kind of work on. And as a school, we'll come up collectively with the top areas. So I do have a strategic planning committee meeting 3 times this summer. We're going to look at those areas and then set goals for the year, possibly the next 2 years, and implement those, and really getting staff input on that, collaboration, working towards those approaches. At the same time, over the last year, I've met with a small group of staff members and a behavioral consultant about social emotional learning. His name's Eric Mann. We had our last meeting yesterday, and it's talking about strategies. How does it work? What do we need to do for next year? So these ideas are all going to be in conjunction with our NELM strategic planning meetings, because about 4 or 5 of those members are also on the strategic planning committee. So we're really trying to look at academics, behavior, social emotional learning, and then approach attendance issues when we can to improve over the next few years. And these are the members who are on the strategic planning committee. We have representation for 6, 7, and 8. We have unified arts, counselors, and administrators. And then I'm hoping to also connect with some parents to get them involved as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Do you plan to encourage teachers to attend the NELMS conference next March?
Yeah, I actually am hoping to bring a team.
Great.
That was the initial hope. This year it was just tough, and then I ended up, I wanted to go just to check it out. And I've already had 2 or 3, I think, people say they want to go.
So it's a really great conference, a lot of good workshops.
It's a great experience.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a couple, so I just want to make sure everyone else knows. You had mentioned tutoring, but you had said something about scheduling, or like, is it not a set time? So like,
Yeah,
do
so
teachers have like set times for tutors?
Some teams will have set times where Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so will be here Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then the other teams say, we're available, just come and schedule a time, we'll be here with you.
Okay.
So they can set up an appointment.
Do you know how many kids are taking advantage of tutoring?
I don't know the numbers right now, but I can get that. We have tons of kids. We also have Mr. Sampson, one of our assistant principals, who stays after for detention and also offers tutoring for more students.
All right. I mean, only because the concern is they're all pretty low. But, and then you said that there's going to be an assessment. Do you know, are you going to share that with the board when it comes back?
Yes.
Do you know when the plan is to share it with the board?
Probably when I receive it.
All right, so
Yeah.
you'll just email it to us, or?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
I know usually those reports are very helpful in planning and strategic efforts, so I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. You know, there are areas that we obviously see, areas that we want to improve, but it's good to have. The committee was made up of 3 retired administrators from New England, and then 2 current high school, middle school teachers from the state of New Hampshire.
Just one more thing. So I also, I mean, I think that you've kind of highlighted on a lot of things that other people have, the fact that the attendance is low and all that stuff. But I haven't really heard a lot about, like, I've heard that what you want to continue, but I think I'd like to know, I'm hoping when the assessment comes back, you're going to be able to come and say, this is our goal for what we want to do for next year. Because I think that's the part that.
Yeah, that's what
kind
the
of
committee
missing.
will do. So first we'll get the report. Staff will also get, the whole staff will get the recommendations. Here's what the areas and what we're going to get their feedback to say. What would you like to focus on? Because we can't possibly focus on it all. And then the strategic planning committee will come up with that action plan of this is what we're going to do starting year 1 into year 2.
And do you think when you get the report back, you'll have enough time to plan that for the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, we have 3 full professional development days with a team of 18. So we'll definitely be able to start trimester A to B and hopefully continue that work throughout the year. The big area that we were going to move to anyway, and I think they're going to make some suggestions, is advisory. We don't have a consistent advisory period, and we're going to create that opportunity where we can implement social emotional learning, we can implement what I need now, opportunities, flex opportunities, and build on that complexity starting in going 6 to 8 and thinking about what they're offering high school for their model.
Have you planned your master schedule for next year yet?
No.
So you were hoping that you'll be able to incorporate that?
I'm hoping that the team really adds to that as we move and build it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I suspect you're expecting like a 100-page document or something like that.
Yeah.
Right, so there's gonna be a lot of information in there for you to work with.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Just 2 more questions. Are you guys still using PBIS or did that go away?
We're using MTSS ultimately, and we're, tier 1, 2, and 3. And we're definitely, our tier 3 model, recently we did a 7-week period where we looked at our, 27 students who were getting a lot of referrals. And so we met with them in small groups or individually and really worked to build relationships, connect with them, and then look at that data to see if things were improving from that point. So guidance and admin were the focus of that in those groups.
And then my last question is, are you still NEASC accredited or not now? And now we're shifting.
I don't know that answer. I know it happened many years ago, and a former staff member shared that.
Yeah.
But the NELMS model is particular to middle school.
Thank you.
Yep.
Everyone all set? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna hang with these guys.
Yep.
I don't know if they say you could.
I think so. The upperclassmen.
And I'm Kathleen Cotton. I do curriculum for middle and high school, so I get to work with this great team. And I'm presenting Future Pathways. We thought this was the perfect bridge at this point between middle and high school. We're all very excited about the work we've done, and it really establishes the why and gives students some roots in what they're learning. So we want to make sure that every student has passion, purpose, and a plan when they move through our district. From the district level, in 2022 and 2023, we really focused on establishing a district group. This will grow as we go forward, but we have teachers, we have elementary, middle, and high school counselors at this point. We have building principals participating, and we have district leaders on this team. Something that we do have that's really helped guide us through all of this work is a membership with the New Hampshire Future Learning Pathways group. And I put the power and promise of Pathways up here. This is really the guidebook for Pathways. But this group is a group of over 30 districts in New Hampshire, and very large districts, and working on the same type of work that we're working on. And we've been members of this for nearly 4 years, I think. There's been a core group who's been going, and they've been offering us a lot of resources. We're able to collaborate with other districts and people from around the country. It's been really, really exciting work. Something as a district that we have purchased and adopted this year is Zello, which is a career and college interest survey and research program. And it provides students with tools to assess, explore, experience, and determine career and life goals. So we purchased, we piloted this year at the high school, and we have a team working on that, and we'll talk about that a bit more. And we're going to bring it into the middle school at some point next year and looking at those bridges and really have the tools so students can really plan for their futures and store evidence of their learning. So this will be something we'll look at the elementary level too. The out of school time career pathway program, OSTCP, was offered to us through the New Hampshire Future Pathways Network. And it's offered us some funding and some support around really experiencing some of these tools and programs that are there. So we're happy to do that. We'll be purchasing the Zello program for the middle school next year through that too. And then the other thing as a district that really, it's been homegrown. We've worked on portrait of the graduate feedback throughout this experience. And at the high school, and I'll let everybody talk when they feel it's appropriate, but as I said, it was really rooted in that Future Pathways work with the state group. And out of that, you'll see that the planning chart that we have there, with Justin and our team that has been there, it was established that by June of 2023, which is now, giving participation in activities, mentorship, and guidance during advisory, 90% of graduating seniors will have a solidified and documented plan for post-graduation, as evidenced through a capstone presentation at the end of the year. And this was really backwards designed. So this was the goal that Mr. Roy had in mind, and that's what we all work for, to get students to have some real plan when they leave. We're excited to say 94% of students had a plan. We have established a Future Pathways High School team, which meets weekly as a smaller group and bi-weekly as a bigger group. As people have talked about, we have advisories that are established at the high school 2 times a week on Mondays and Fridays. And on Mondays, that is really time for check-in. They look at grades, then students have an opportunity to explore careers and other resources that are there. And on Fridays, it's a mix of other curriculum. Guidance, which Michelle, Ms. Halligan-Foley has been a great supporter of, has been working with students on career planning and the vertical for this. Zello, as I talked about, and something that we are excited about was the parent engagement meeting that we've had and we're going to throw out, and the summer jumpstart program, which we are going to kick off at the beginning of July for a summer program for 8th graders. And as you see the other things here, we've been really doing a lot at the high school.
Okay, I can jump in.
Go for it.
All right. This stems back to about 2 years ago when I was having a conversation with a student who had every intention of taking classes at Great Bay. So I'm like, great, that's your plan. And I see him in the fall, and I'm like, how are those classes going? Oh, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea. So I said, our plan is that when a kid walks across our stage at graduation, that not only do they know what they're doing, the plan is already in place, right? So we started, I mean, the fact that 94 kids had a solidified plan was awesome, because we shot for 90, and we thought that was pretty high. So 94 kids, and we'll show you examples of some capstones that they all presented. We're hoping that as this program gets bigger, that we're inviting parents in and board members in to see some of these presentations, because they presented to their advisories only. But I sat in on a bunch of them, and it was really interesting to see them own their future, you know, because so many kids just don't know what to do. So that's really what we've been trying to work on. And so we're bringing in, we had more college fairs and more career fairs this year. We had the shipyard there, and we had a couple kids that said, you know, I really want to do the shipyard. I'm like, come on, over to the table, like, and we sign up, right? And so they signed up, and they're taking whatever tests they give, you know, to find out what program they qualify for. So we're getting those plans in place because kids can verbalize what they think they want to do, but then they have no idea how to get there. So that's really what we're working on, and that's what, you know, Kyle's vision is that we start this pathway work right in kindergarten all the way through. So that's what we're doing. So it's exciting work.
Just to clarify, you said 94 kids, you meant
94%. Did I say kids? 94%.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's even better, right? That shows you that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot better than 94 kids.
And this year, the middle school, with Ryan Gilpatrick and Ms. Halligan-Foley have really built these programs down into the middle school. Of course, she's already established it in CTE, which a lot of students have amazing opportunities, and then she's bringing that to the middle school. You guys want to talk about it?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go to the workshops this year with Pathways with the high school staff, and I thought it was a great building block talk as we connected a little more. We got guidance kind of staff there as well. You know, we have the way to that we use currently for 8th graders for interest survey. The CTE program, Michelle's been fantastic, and Justin, our 8th graders go to tour the facility in January. Michelle from the beginning said, I really want to do a college fair, CTE fair at your school, and we made it work. We did it recently, 16 programs, I believe. 17. And every 6th grader, every 7th grader, and every 8th grader did like a speed dating format. I had a lot of fun because I got to hit the basketball buzzer and surprise everybody every 2 minutes. But it was fantastic. Kids loved it, staff loved it because they got to go back and they said kids were talking about it for days. So we talked, and Michelle and I talked a little bit, and her idea was to possibly do an 8th grade one specific in the fall, then they go to tour the facility, and in the spring, 6th and 7th grade. That's a great idea. We have a business unified arts class that we started this year, and I know that the high school program they work with a school store and they create their own items, and we're looking to do the same. So we're going to connect with that teacher with our staff and hopefully open up a little school store with some of our gear as well. And just really, really excited about continuing those paths for students, building those paths. We do offer algebra experience and trying to expand on that and considering other opportunities in the future.
And then, Kyle, did you want to talk to this about the future?
Well, just, real big broad strokes, you've heard a lot of people talk about social emotional needs and different things. If you think about our mission and vision, personalized education is what we tell people we strive for. If you know what you personally like, you'll be okay. But we have to expose students to what their choices are. And you heard about the speed dating format, and you heard about the opportunities at the high school to get into different pathways. Real simply, those are the buckets that our CT centers in our area on the left offer. To the right is our plan, through different guidance opportunities using a program like Zello, with a guided, structured path through opportunities for career and personalized inventories that we can track needs and interests. So if you think about it, in kindergarten, if we had 600 kids interested in automotive, and then in the end of 5th grade, we had 550 still offered interested in automotive. And then in middle school, we're like 450 kids in 8th grade still want automotive. We need more sections of automotive in the high school. So we have to make very strategic decisions based on what kids need so that we can keep them in the pipeline. You think about some of the issues with attendance. Again, we need to make sure students know what their personalized path is so they feel more comfortable coming to school. So through this model that we're continuing to backwards design, we hope that in a few years, we will be able to have a pre-K 12 model, right, where students are basically giving us their interests, and we're cataloging that, we're working with them, we're integrating into curriculum opportunities within the school day, and then we're also using it to make data-informed decisions long-term. So you heard about this Future Pathway Network. It's a great resource. We've seen some national presenters and school models that exist currently in our nation. My hope would be that we go and tour a couple of those in the near future so that we can learn from their growing pains and we can bring best practices to Rochester. And hopefully be a flagship site in the future about what personalized learning looks like for all students.
Are there any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Roy. I gotta tell you, I was a sophomore before I figured out what I wanted to do at UNH. So when I hear about these directed pathways and all that, it kind of makes me quiver a little bit. So how strenuous are those about blocking the kid in or whatever? Are they an exposure? That's an exposure, I'm all for it.
I think that people's plans change constantly, right? So as long as they have some type of plan moving forward, it's going to change, that life changes. So I don't think that they're locked into going to Great Bay or they're locked into going to UNH, plans change. But if they're able to to visualize themselves doing something, which is a whole lot better than not having a plan at all when they walk across the stage. And that's what we're really trying to do.
We also have a lot of exploratory classes where students can go per quarter and they can check it out and see if it's something they like before
Is that open for adults?
Maybe at night, I'm working on it.
Is there any plan to do a follow-up to see what these kids ended up doing?
So we have talked about this for years on how to logistically do that, where we send out a survey to graduates. So it's part of our summer work with the counselors to talk about how we can come up with a system, but they've never done it.
Okay, just here, thank you.
And I know that's not easy because you have to
Right.
find these.
You have to find them, yeah.
And then reach out to them and then get that.
A lot of them come here. 10-year reunion comes out, it's impossible to find some of them.
Right.
You know, every class struggles with that, finding their members. Well, try to find them.
Well, we've got a few going. I think this is great. I think exposing our kids to stuff early on is great. Even at kids at my kids' age, just exposing them so they're ready come high school. They got a plan on what they want to do. So I think it's good stuff.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Next would be the high school. Can you pick that up?
So we've all sort of taken a piece of this. We very much are a team at the high school, so I wanted us to present it as a team. But I also want you to know who they are, so we should introduce first. Michelle, why don't you start, even though...
Michelle Halligan Foley, I'm the CTE director. I oversee our school counselors, and I also do district wellness.
Jason Bushway, I don't do as much as Sarah, but assistant principal, I oversee the freshman cohort and a lot of the freshman programs.
And I'm the principal, Justin Roy.
Jenna Katana is deputy principal. I work primarily with the junior-senior class.
And I'm Joy Page, the new member of the group, assistant principal, and I mainly work with the 10th graders.
Kate Stemmel, special education coordinator, and I have the privilege of working with everybody.
On the next school, totally.
I'll start off with this slide, the annual grade comparison slide. As you can see, there's not a lot of change going on from last year to this year. You'll see semester one, we had 90% of our students receive a C or better. And besides our amazing faculty and their dedication, the reason we are maintaining these positive numbers is mainly because of 4 key factors. First factor would be our credit recovery classes, which are classes offered during the day that students take and are able to make up their competencies that they missed in prior classes. Another factor would be our E-block, which is very similar to our credit recovery, but it's offered after school, 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Our third factor is our successful summer school programs. And then finally, the final factor is our newly implemented Flex Block. This is a daily block that provides additional opportunities to reassess and relearn from the current courses that they are taking. Our semester 2 data, teachers are still inputting that, and we'll get that in the next couple days.
All right, so next is some state assessments. So we have the SAT that the students take, and then the PSAT that we offer to our 10th grade population. So for the SAT, you can see there's a slight decline, but I would like to note that we've stayed in line with the state. The state has also gone down. So this year, the state mean is 506, so we're about 33 points different. Last year, it was 512, we were 24, so we're in line with that. The next slide is the same, but this is for the math. This is relative to that there has been a decline in the state as well. This year, the state mean was 488. We have a 30-point difference there. Last year was 494 with a 32-point difference. So it's been relative. One of the things that we do is we provide resources for teachers to work within their classes to prep for the PSAT and the SAT, we use PLC time to discuss these resources and share it with staff. And it's something that, you know, we've all talked about those incentives as the SAT becomes less valuable as, you know, an entrance for college admissions. We have to figure out ways to incentivize this too, to put that value so that the kids take it seriously, so they're really showing off, you know, how great they're doing in the classroom. So it's something that we're working with the guidance department on.
Whoops,
You missed a slide. There we go.
all right. Yeah, the SAS science scores, if you look, they've maintained about the same levels. We do not have the state average at this time, but it's probably in line with what happened with the SAT and PSATs as far as the state average probably has declined somewhat. We don't have the exact number yet. We also know that with our science data, unlike when 8th grade takes science, they've had science all year. Our 11th graders could possibly not take a science their junior year. So when this test was given, a third of our students were enrolled in a science class. Others may not have taken a science class since their sophomore year. So we do have a little bit of difference in how this data can be perceived, because it's that test in 11th grade. And our kids have a choice of when they're taking their classes. So it might also have a factor.
So some of our pathway data, every year the CTE is monitored through the DOE. And so I wanted to share just a couple areas that we discussed. The first area is our industry recognized credentials. These are credentials that are approved through multiple businesses in the state, through the Department of Education. And right now we offer 21 credentials or certifications out of our 17 programs. We are looking at offering a few more credentials next year, focusing in the areas of criminal justice and our engineering program. As of today, we have 238 students who have received credentials, which is the largest that we've ever had at Spalding and the Tech Center. I'm going to get into college credit on the next page, but our work-based learning, this year we've had 83 students participate in independent studies or internships, opportunities to get out and do some clinical work. And moving forward, we will now have 2 ELO positions, which will give students more opportunities to get out there and to experience real life, real world. And then our completer numbers, 155. Again, this is the largest since I began. We've been really focusing on our pathway work with this and doing a lot of recruitment backward chaining into the middle school. We shared those opportunities already. We'll be moving down to the elementary school. Moving forward, because we have our ELO, coordinators will be able to offer a lot more third-year experiences. So they'll have the year 1, 2, or 3 program, and then they'll have these experiences as well. Thinking outside of the box, moving forward, I am working with Great Bay and Mr. Rapusi to try and do some more evening opportunities within the tech center. So right now we do the automotive program in the evening where students can attend and receive credit, and we're looking at offering more evening opportunities. So right now we call our Running Start dual enrollment program. These are the college programs, and there's going to be a new name. There is a new name right now called Early College. So as of next year, I'm going to call it Early College. This year, there were 435 students who participated in high school courses. And out of those courses, which were 37 of them, 393 students participate in Running Start. which is about 90% of the population take advantage. Just as a reminder, we are very fortunate. We have a lot of STEM programs which are free for students to take. So they're receiving college credit for zero cost. Those programs that are not, the district pays $100 out of the $150, and we have scholarships available for students who are not able to do it themselves. Next year, I have already worked with Great Bay. We have a new art class, and we have some, in our engineering class, some electrical components. So those will be 2 new courses, so we will be up to 39 courses next year offered to students. Thank you.
So
Quick
this,
question. Your total number of CTE completers you said was 155. Are those almost all seniors, or are some of them juniors as well?
Some of them are juniors, mostly seniors.
Can I ask a question, Jill? So the Running Start dual enrollment, the 393, is that just what grade level are they able to start taking these
So
courses?
they can start it in sophomore year, so sophomore, junior, and senior, and those are the students who completed. There were other students who did it, but they didn't complete the requirements.
Thank you.
And that is new, because it used to be just junior and senior.
I thought so.
And then they okayed sophomores.
so now we can look at where all of these students are headed, and as we were preparing this data, I just wanted to reflect that what we're looking at here is the students we celebrated going across the stage last Friday. So this is looking at where they're headed, and it is a bit of tiny data, so I will describe it to you. The red pie is at 42%. Those are our students who are going on to 4-year colleges. And if we look at the blue pie at about 13%, those are students that are going on to 2-year colleges. When you put those two together, we're at 55%. So we're seeing many students moving on to continuing ed. When we reflect on this from prior years, this is fairly stable. So we've maintained that. And then going back to what Michelle just shared too, some of these students are coming in already ahead of the game, right? They've already completed some college courses. Looking at the yellow pie, this is students who are reporting that they have employment right now. And this is all variety. This is students who say, yeah, I've got that job at Market Basket. But this includes also what Michelle just shared, students who have completed programs. We have, I don't have the breakdown of that yellow pie, but we have students who are already working in their industry. We have students who are completing high school already with secured jobs in the area of their interest. So it's pretty exciting to see that if you're not going to college, if you are employed, you might be employed in that goal or that pathway. And we do have some students who are reporting they don't have employment at this time. That is our green pie, and that is relatively the same, not increased from prior, but that they haven't figured it out yet. Hopefully with continued pathway work, that will be different. And our orange pie is also a student body that we should really recognize. Those are our students who are serving in the military, and we recognize them as well last Friday.
And so we always like to put a list in of where our students are headed. And we have some great schools up there. I mean, we have kids getting into the Ivies, we have Tufts and Dartmouth. And so we have a really nice list of schools. I won't read them all to you, but you can take a look later. So just, looking forward, what are we doing as a school? One of the things that I'm working with NHS, our National Honor Society students, to get community service hours, they're gonna start tutoring and having hours up in our new media center. And they're really pumped about it. So they'll be working with kids in math and language arts. So obviously we're gonna work out the logistics, but that's something we're doing. Jenna mentioned earlier, we need to start coming up with incentives for the SAT. Like UNH, the whole UNH system doesn't even look at SATs anymore, and the kids know it. So we're trying to incentivize their, how well they do on the test. I'm working with Dover. Peter Driscoll and I are good friends, and he had the same issue. So next year we're going to do some things together, like trying to incentivize and do some contests or something. So that's coming down the pike. We're hoping to have some teachers do some duties up in the media center to to give additional supports in math and reading and writing. We're expanding our pathways opportunities. We're going to use the Zello data that you've been hearing about. They take interest surveys. We're going to take those interest surveys and actually plan guest speakers coming in and planning trips around that. So if we have a whole cohort of kids that are really interested in plumbing, then I'm going to talk with Kevin Hart, and we're going to go and look at some great opportunities for plumbing. So we're excited about that. Zello is a phenomenal program. We just hired a new ELO coordinator, so now we have 2, so we're really going to expand opportunities in earlier grades with internships and job opportunities. We're going to continue with our flex and focus on targeted instruction, and we're going to increase communication with our community. We did a parent engagement night, and I realized that half the people there knew absolutely everything that we offered, and the other half had absolutely no idea what we offered. So we need to work much better at communicating what all these opportunities are. And so we're going to have a monthly newsletter that goes out, and some more parent engagement opportunities. That's it.
Ms. Roy, do you have any idea, 42%, I was pretty pleased with that number actually, of going on to 4-year colleges. Do you have any, I know we've had a couple of weird years here, but do you have any idea, you've been here a while, so, and you know I've always been on your case about this. But,
Yes, you have.
Do you have any idea what the numbers were, say, 5 years ago or 6 years ago?
Yeah, it was 60%.
Really?
So we're at 55 right now. So
Okay.
it's pretty consistent ever since I've been installing. It's between 55 and 60%. Some years it's a little higher.
Yeah, good, thank you.
We just have a lot of kids that go into the workforce, and that's okay. Like, it's great to go
Don't
into
get
the
tired of
trades.
that.
Yeah, so. I mean, I just was talking to our HVAC teacher today, and out of, how many kids did he graduate, Michelle? 16, right?
16.
75% of them are already employed by HVAC companies at 18 years old. Like, that's
By
phenomenal.
a program that's
By
been
our
involved in?
HVAC program.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible.
And
That statistic's incredible.
They've had, some of them had signing bonuses, and they're making really great money.
And you're thinking about joining?
I'm thinking, probably thinking.
We've been thinking about HVAC, we have, yeah. So,
Just a question.
Yeah.
My school just started doing this year where, you know how athletic signings, they have the big thing.
Yeah.
We started doing this thing where a student signs up to work for Joy's HVAC. They have, you know, the people from Joy's come in and they sign there on the dotted line and do something like that.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and we did start, you know, where the kids can wear their shirts where they're going to work. And then we do, you know, just a little summary of where they're going, and we hang it up in the tech. But we have talked about that, just getting it done.
Adds a little more seriousness to for the kids too, as well. Great, thank you. Any other questions, Bob? Okay.
No, I have none. I know, I feel like I need to, but I know.
Moving on, no.
Last but definitely not least, Bud Carlson, and we have Mr. Kelleher.
Here we go, 4 o'clock. All right. I'm gonna have a hard time saying no. Yeah, let's show you the data first for Bud Carlson Academy. What you're looking at there, holy cow. Is anyone getting upset if I get up?
No.
All right, good. Oh, so for us, the cohort data doesn't make as much sense as comparing, when it comes to NEWA data, the fall data to the spring data. The average graduate for us has probably been with us for less than 2 years. So really what we're looking for, what you're seeing here is in the fall, the percentage of students who are low would be 20%, and the low average, 60%. Average, high, what we're hoping to see is that the red bars start getting bigger as we go to the right, and the blue bars are smaller, if you will. Or that's what we expect to see. And so that's with the NEWA math data this year, that is what we saw. You know, we've got over 80% of the students in the low average when it comes to the fall. but we're down to we're at just above 40% in that same number when it comes to the spring. Ding. And reading looks similar in that sense, right? We're expecting to see if we're helping students with their growth and achievement. The blue bar is larger on the left-hand side, and the red bars being smaller than them, and the opposite on the other side there, where students are actually we get students in all kinds of shapes this year and every year. And so we're just hoping overall to be moving that direction, and then from there it's kind of the individual stories.
So
Yeah, please.
It's hard for me to read. You're saying that the red, it looks good.
It does, because what we're seeing is, so the red is the spring. So what we're saying is that as far as students low, right, in that lowest 20% of scores for NEWA, we had over almost 30% in the fall who were that low, but in the spring, we're down below 15%. Who are scoring that low of all the students taking it. And we're seeing students who, we have no one scoring high in the fall when it comes to reading this year, but about 11-12% of our students, when we tested in the spring, are scoring high.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make more sense?
It does make more sense, I'm sorry.
No, there's no way you're the only one that had that question.
Yeah.
So in our overall competency data, and the next slide I'll talk a little more about it, we've been part of the CSI work that we've been doing. We spent a few years working on the climate and culture of the school, especially with the trauma-skilled school piece, and we've seen a lot of positive effects. So one of the pieces we really wanted to work on this year is on the achievement end. And part of what we targeted really was making sure our competencies were, there's a lot of competencies out there, even within type, but make sure that we had some core competencies and learning targets, not just big learning targets, but daily learning targets with our students and what we're doing. And one of the things we saw this year was a growth in credits, but where we particularly saw a growth was in the number of students getting A's and B's, which, now we saw more of this, and I'll talk about the next slide with the teachers that were a little more experienced, but what it allowed them, you can show the next slide, what it allowed, I think, some of the more experienced teachers to do with the learning targets was, now I can, I've got those students who we can push a little further, and I think that led to, we had more students this year. I have 4 seniors who were accepted to college before graduation, which for us is really, really good, and 2 of those were 4-year colleges, including, and as well as, and that doesn't include 2 students who were high-set students. So that we're trying to raise the bar, or make sure that bar is there for the students who aren't showing that much, or they struggle, or on the low end of that, but also try and raise the bar for those students who are there, mostly for the trauma-impacted needs, not cognitive needs, to make sure that we're getting them to where they are. So the 23-24 focus will be really continuing and seeing how we can grow with the learning targets and the growth mindset piece with our students. We worked in trimesters this year, and that allowed us a lot of freedom, as well as just more opportunity for students to be gaining credits. And we've also got, I could show you other data too. When you look at the NYCs and the IWSs from that other piece there, a huge chunk of those are in trimester 2, and which means early December through February. And so what that will allow us to do summer planning wise this way is, all right, what are the things we really should be offering at that point, right? Can we be offering more experiential learning during that time, or things that are going to hook students, or maybe look at when and how we're adding students. It allowed us to have independent learning blocks during that time, so we support the students. We have supporting students with advisory for many years, but these independent learning blocks have given some of the students places to get help, and some of them chances to go above and beyond. And then continue to increase. It feels like we're coming out of the pandemic, and so we've been able to increase and find new, as well as what do they call that when you reconnect with with some of the community partners we've had before. There's been a good increase in the rebuilding the service learning piece, as well as, with the senior projects this year, 5 of them were outside the building, at Rochester Child Care, over at William Allen, at Broadview Animal Hospital, and even the other senior projects were building something that's a part of BCA that other students can continue doing. One of them is a BCA food pantry, and the other is a kind of new donation system that links in with Waypoint, the share fund, as well as with our students. I think I read all that. Oh, and I said I'd bring some pictures. So, and I can't thank you enough for allowing BCA to do the Acadia trip. It was 12 students and the staff that, that effective domain that we don't think about too much. It really, the students learned a lot ecologically. Some of them want to split the credit and get half a PE credit, and I get it afterwards, because I'm like 53 years old, and I go up and down this mountain twice. You're 17, what's going on? But at the same, and that's just a part of their lives, and probably has been, but the number of students who want to make this something that becomes a part of BCA and something that we do every year, and I've been talking to their parents, this had a big impact on the lives of 12 students who never had something like this happen before, and I think they're going to spread it and want it to become something that becomes a part of, kind of a part of who we are. So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Did I talk to all of them?
I love the Bud Carlson, so I think it's hard for me to ask you academic questions, because I think these kids are just all different. So you explain the grass, and I appreciate that, and I just think the work that you guys do is amazing.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I think, and I could do a better job with this. We do, twice a year, we do a can night, which at the end of the trimester is a celebration of achievement night instead of finals. And if folks want to come and talk to some of the students about their learning, they're putting it up, they're connecting it to their guiding skills. And then the senior project night is just the seniors, and we did that just a couple days after this trip, so I was kind of zonked out. But it was pretty amazing. And the senior project night is something where the seniors are sharing their projects and stuff. And I think, yeah, sometimes the data doesn't tell the story for us, but the individual students do. And yeah, please come to any of those.
As I said, I do have a question now. Yeah, we don't really know about those things, so if you could just let us know. But again, these kids were struggling in high school, so for them
That's
to
right.
have A's and have 10% of those competencies be A's, I mean, that's a testament to the kids, but it's a testament to the staff as well.
And it is the staff working on their whole growth mindset in whatever place they can catch that first. And if that is getting up the beehive, great. If that's sewing a pillow, great. If that's building a mousetrap car, great. But as soon as that building from that I can piece, when we finally get them, is what a lot of folks have been working hard on doing.
Yeah, I was upset I didn't get asked to chaperone the Disney trip, but there's no way I was doing that one.
And this may also fall to Michelle, but did Bud Carlson have the opportunity to take advantage of any of the CTC programming? Or?
So we've had Bud Carlson come over. They do our career fairs, they do our pop-up events. We have had students come over and participate in some of the programs over there. So the answer is yes.
Okay, because you know as well as I do that a kid that may not be, but can work with their hands and that finds that redevelops that
Yes.
urge to stay in school and urge to learn and, give something they can try that.
Yeah, and I'd always love to be doing more, but the doors have been open over there.
No, and
our students that are ready for it, they've done an awesome job with.
Thank you for both.
Brian, I have one question for you.
Sure.
Wonder if you can share with us how students make it from Spalding High School to your program. And I'm looking at numbers from our next committee, and knowing that there are always kids that can take advantage of your program. How do we get more into your program that can take advantage of such great opportunities?
And this is about the time of year, and I think, and Jason Bushmeyer and I were just meeting about this as far as looking at some of the data from the high school and who are those students who are in danger of being overaged and undercredited. The Raider Pathway program is one of the things where it's like, all right, these kids are making it and they're gonna need not that many supports. These kids are gonna need a little more. These kids are getting a lot of supports. Let's go look at Bud Carlson Academy. The guidance counselors over there have gotten pretty good at knowing when some of those students could probably benefit from BCA. And I mean, we could always use more students, you know what I mean? Like in some ways, it's interesting when I look at the data of the classes where the students do the best, they tend to be the classes that have at least 8-10 kids in them. Whereas those classes that are a little smaller, there tends to be the couple that are really exceeding and the couple that are just kind of on their phone or whatever, you know, they just haven't connected yet. Yeah, it's not a simple answer, but I think we're really trying to figure out when that sweet spot is, because if they come over too early, we're not successful. Even though probably at the high school you're like, oh, this kid's gonna end up over there eventually, isn't he? Like that, he really needs you guys. But if we do it too early, there's no alternative to the alternative school. So we're also trying to figure out when that timing is. And the trimesters help us, I think, in order to, there's more room for error if we do, you know, so we can wait with some of the, you know, to not come over after one semester at the high school. It just doesn't work as well with us.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, folks? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Like I said to the elementary teachers, thank you, your staff. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I know.
Very much on the 5-year plan. All right, 5-year plan, Mr. Collier.
Everything's been set by this committee. The only thing I'm just gonna let you guys remind you is you have working items, so it'd be good at some point that you take one topic and start making it an action item on your agenda going forward.
Do that?
Do that again?
Just saying that now that we have our 5-year plan together for this committee, it's been voted on, it's gonna get published. At some point, it'd be good for this committee to take one of these items that we wanna focus on and make it an action item on the agenda.
We already highlighted technology assessment as our first focus.
All right, any questions on the 5-year plan? All right,
Well,
Do we,
go ahead.
we want to ask that we set a target date of when we want the technology assessment done by?
Well, do we know when they think they can do it?
I would recommend we go back to the district and they can give us a technology assessment, maybe by next meeting, give us a target date that they could have one together for us. And that assessment should be future plans for replacement equipment, or it can just be as simple as an update on inventory and where we are.
I think it'd be fair, September, October, we're doing our first district-wide
Yeah, upgrade.
full infrastructure,
Yep.
like warehousing this summer.
Yep.
In inventory, so September, October seems like a good fit.
Okay. Do you want to say October, and that way if there's a delay with the beginning of the year? So, there we go.
Go, Jay.
question. So I see in the parking lot, we got the digital text box at the high school. What about at the elementary school? Because it looks like they don't use theirs either. They use their computers pretty much, or their iPads for everything. They don't really use the textbooks that come with, I guess, the program. So where do we stand there?
So just a reminder on the 5-year process, we put some items on the top that are priority.
Yeah,
So we can add to the parking lot, not just high school, but district-wide, if the committee agrees.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at because they're not using the textbooks that come with the program at the elementary level either. I think everything's becoming digital. I think we're paying for these textbooks and we don't really use them. We might use them as a reference. I don't know, maybe Kyle, you can, or Christine, you can speak to that, you're at the elementary.
I would say the printed student manuals and teacher manuals at the elementary level are extremely important.
Okay.
Because the kids are on screens for some of their apps and different programs, but the teachers still really like the kids to be able to have it. Some of the programs don't necessarily give every kid like an old-fashioned textbook now. So like in math, it's like more of a student work journal, so they're like writing in it and doing like practice problems. And the reading program we have mostly comes with like small readers, and they reuse those every year.
Because I know my kids came home with all this stuff, and they had their books, but there's not really much written down in the books. So it's just, does it come with a program, and they just utilize that book as a reference, or?
Which program? There's a different, okay.
Math,
Okay.
but I know we're changing our math
Yeah.
program.
Math utilizes a journal, a workbook, that the
So-
kids write in.
All right, I just wanna make sure if we're
Yeah.
buying these books, we're using them, or if we can go without them, great. 'Cause-
Any other comments or questions? Okay. I'm not seeing any public for public comment. Is there anyone
Nope.
at all?
Nope.
You don't have to read that. Right, any other? Okay, no other?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, thank you.